Gundam Battle Operation 2. The sequel to the original Gundam Battle Operation released in 2018 on PS4 and has since also become playable on PS5 and is one of the longest supported Gundam games on the market today. With its realistic combat and wide selection of mobile suits from the Universal Century, ranging from the original Mobile Suit Gundam all the way to Unicorn and Narrative, GBO has become widely popular with Gundam fans across the globe, especially due to the fact that it's free to play. Despite that, it suffered from the limitation of only being available on PlayStation, but 4 years later, in April of 2022, it was announced that GBO would be coming to PC for the first time. The first network test took place shortly after in that same year, and after a long delay, the second one took place in April 2023. I expect there's going to be a large influx of new players when the game officially launches on PC, so I wanted to make this guide ahead of time to explain the basics of GBO2. There are other Gundam creators I know that focus on GBO2 and are much more knowledgeable than I am, and I'll be sure to link their guides in the description below if you want to check them out. However, I still wanted to make this video to give you the perspective of someone who plays the game casually and just go over the basics so that you can get started without feeling intimidated or overwhelmed by information. I've also broken up this video into segments that you can view in the description or by hovering over the scroll bar, so if you're looking for information on a specific part of the game, you can skip straight to that part of the video. If you enjoy the video, please be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Gundam content, and with all that out of the way, let's get right into it. GBO2 is a cross of a third-person shooter and a mech simulator that operates on a gacha system. If you're unfamiliar with how gacha games work, first of all you're lucky, but here's a quick explanation. Playing the game earns you a certain type of currency, which you can then use to acquire items through the same mechanic used by toy vending machines. When you use your currency, you have a randomized chance to drop items from a large pool, with the most highly sought after items obviously having a much lower drop rate. Each game calls these drops or pulls something different. Genshin Impact calls them wishes, Fate Grand Order calls them summons, and in GBO2 they're called supply drops. In this game, supply drops can reward you with either mobile suits themselves or main ranged and melee weapons for those mobile suits. But before we get into more detail about pulls, I want to start by talking about the base camp. The base camp is the social hub that you load into whenever you log into the game, and you return here after any online matches or missions that you play. The first time you log in each day after the reset, you'll be greeted with some notices. If you're in a clan, the first thing that comes up is your clan leaderboard and missions, and after that you move on to the standard notices. You can view the currently active banners, details on any active campaigns, collect login bonuses, and view your daily missions. Your daily missions are arguably the most important information here because each of the three awards you one token, and these tokens are the currency I mentioned before that allows you to pull for supply drops. GBO is a gacha game that I believe has a very satisfying gameplay loop because it takes exactly 3 tokens for a single pull, so if you do your dailies every day, you will always be rewarded. The first vendor who greets you is Tenda Begin, the training instructor. When you boot up the game for the first time, she takes you through a brief tutorial to help you understand how to actually play the game, but after that she provides a list of tutorial missions that you can complete for more rewards, including tokens and new mobile suits to add to your arsenal. On top of these rewards, these missions also teach you more about advanced gameplay, so I highly recommend doing them before you jump into online play. Second, we have the supply counter, and this is going to be the source of a lot of emotions, either positive or negative depending on your luck. This is where you spend your currencies, and most notably where you pull for supply drops. Another mechanic of gacha games like GBO2 is known as banners, and a banner focuses on a featured item, in this case a mobile suit. Every week at the weekly reset, which is shown in Japan Standard Time on screen here, a new mobile suit is added to the game and its banner becomes available. You can choose to use your tokens on this banner if you want the new suit, or any of the other banners that are sometimes available. You can of course choose not to spend your tokens and simply save them until a banner shows up that you're actually interested in. Don't forget, just because you pull on a specific banner does not guarantee you will drop the suit, as you're pulling from a massive pool of suits and weapons. You can even drop weapons for suits that you don't have, which is honestly one of the most frustrating parts about this game. You can choose to spend 3 tokens for a single drop or spend 30 tokens for a total of 10 drops. Some special banners, like the first one on screen here, offer 50% off for your first pull of 10 drops, allowing you to save some tokens. Some banners also include steps that grant more deterministic rewards for pulling multiple times, although this results in a pretty big token investment. If you drop duplicates of any suits or parts you already own, you'll receive another currency called recycle tickets, as well as enhancement progress if it's a suit. Be sure to keep an eye out for special campaigns as well, as some of these offer free banners for things like seasonal or anniversary events. You can also access the DP exchange here. DP is another common currency that is earned through certain missions, login bonuses, end of match supply crates, and playing matches. You can then exchange your DP for suits, weapons, custom parts, or clothing and accessories for your pilot. The catch with this exchange is that many of the really strong suits aren't available until you reach a much higher level, so if you're looking to get some of those really popular suits, you're probably still going to have to rely on luck. The last option at the supply counter is the recycle ticket counter. Like I mentioned before, these tickets mainly come from duplicate suits or weapons from your pulls, but you can also earn them from missions and end of match supply crates. These tickets can be exchanged for all the same things as the DP exchange, as well as markings for your suits and paint patterns. Both the DP and recycle ticket exchange counters reset daily, so make sure you check them often. Next up in base camp is the mission control, and I'll be honest, this guy is only here to promote you whenever you complete your promotion missions for each rank. One of the most important vendors is the reward center. In this game, any rewards you receive, whether from login bonuses or completing missions, are not collected automatically. You need to visit this vendor and collect them yourself manually. Next door, you have the two clan vendors. The clan camp lets you search or create a clan, as well as leave your current one or confirm an invite to a new one. The clan terminal lets you view all of your clan members, your clan profile, and your clan mark. Next up, we have the Hangar, where you can place your mobile suits in Hangar slots to enhance them. By leaving a suit in the Hangar slot for 70 hours, you level up its enhancement score, and you can select a suit and view its enhancement list to see what bonus you receive for each tier. If you have the right mechanics tickets, you can make the enhancement go faster, and you can also unlock additional hangars by reaching a certain level, as well as receiving monthly medals by completing missions. You'll launch all your online matches from the Sortie Counter. The two main options you'll be engaging with here are Quick Match and Rated Match. Think of Quick Match like casual and Rated like the game's ranked mode. Rated matches affect your rating for ground or space depending on which type of match you play, and they also give more XP towards leveling up. Each match option is divided into either ground or space, team size, cost, and match type. The cost refers to the maximum cost allowed for your selected mobile suit. Each suit that you own has a cost assigned to it, which I'll explain in the next section. You can select any suit between the cost set for the match and up to 100 below. As an example, for a 500 cost match, you can pick a suit that's either 400, 450, or 500. The match type, on the other hand, determines the rules of the match. The most common type is Basic Match, where two teams fight it out in their mobile suits and compete for the highest score within the time limit. In Basic Match, you can also exit your suit to capture flags, which serve as respawn points and allow you to call in support fire. While outside your suit, you can also plant a bomb at the opposing team's base to destroy it. Simple Battle is essentially the same thing, except you can't exit your suit, and each of the capture points are neutral, so anyone can use them to respawn. Another common match type is Ace Match, where an ace pilot is selected after a certain amount of time based on match performance. The team receives more score if the ace is the one to land the killing blow on an opponent, and the other team receives more score for destroying your team's ace. There are a few other match options, but those are less common, so we won't worry about covering those now. The final vendor is the Battle Simulator, which lets you play PvE missions either by yourself or with up to 2 friends. These missions range from trying out new, highly sought after suits like the Atlas, or fighting boss battles against mobile armors. Simulation missions also have time trial challenges that you can complete for rewards. Now that we've gone over the base camp, let's move on to H.A.R.O, which is your personal player terminal. The first section is for your mobile suits. In this section, you can configure your suit to your liking, but let's start by going over the important information you need to look for. Each mobile suit will have a category, which is an extremely important part of gameplay. Mobile suits are classified as either Raid, General, or Support, and these 3 classes have a rock, paper, scissors relationship. Each class has an advantage against one of the other classes and is disadvantaged against the other 2. In game, this results in dealing 30% more damage if you have an advantage against your opponent, and dealing 20% less damage if you're disadvantaged. Raids are strong against supports, generals are strong against raids, and supports are strong against generals. Your suits also have a level and an associated cost, which we covered earlier when we talked about the match types. Cost is usually determined by mobile suit performance, so on the lower end you'll see things like Zaku's, and on the top end at 700 you have suits like the Unicorn or the Sazabi. It is possible to own multiple copies of the same suit that are different levels, and in these cases the higher the level, the higher the cost. Higher level suits also have higher stats and more points that can be allocated towards parts. Every suit can equip a total of 8 parts, but parts take up part slots that are divided into close, medium, and long range, and you cannot exceed your suit's maximum capacity for each category. Owning a suit at a higher level also lets you equip higher level weapons for that suit if you acquire them from supply drops. But if you equip a weapon that's a higher level than your suit's level, you'll get a notice when you're getting ready to launch a match that it will lower your weapon level back down, so it will have no effect. You can also set up shortcuts for your weapons, which allow you to quickly swap to whatever weapon you want in-game. I cannot stress how important this is, because if you don't do this, you have to cycle through each weapon one at a time in order, which is absolutely horrible. Also be sure to check out and become familiar with the skills that your suit has. These can change the way you play because some suits don't have the ability to do emergency evasions, some have 2 or 3 hit melee combos, and some suits have transform or flight capabilities. Once you reach the rank of Lance Corporal, you will also have the option to paint your mobile suits with custom colors, markings, and patterns. This is one of my personal favorite features of the game, and I honestly think I spend more time custom painting my suits than actually playing matches. The pilot screen lets you customize your pilot's clothing and accessories. You can set different outfits for the base camp, ground battles, and space battles. Now let's talk about missions, which are your main source of rewards in GBO. Monthly missions usually involve playing matches and acquiring currencies. Completing a certain number of monthly missions will also unlock monthly medals. These medals will allow you to use the pre-match encourage feature, which increases the chance that your team will find supply containers after a win. This is very beneficial because depending on the value of these containers, they can give you anything from currencies to mobile suits. Daily missions are the ones that you should pay the most attention to. They're pretty quick and each reward 1 token, and like I mentioned earlier, completing all of your dailies will net you enough tokens for one single pull, so they're definitely worth doing whenever you have the time. Limited missions are not available all the time, but allow you to earn some additional rewards when they are around. There's usually one special suit and paint pattern for each set of limited missions, and you can also earn other things like currencies. Lastly, promotion missions become available to you whenever you've leveled up enough to be promoted to your next major rank. These missions usually include objectives like earning XP, playing a certain number of matches, winning matches, and defeating rivals. Once you complete all of these missions, you can visit Mission Control to be promoted. Now that we've gone over the basics of what you need to get started, I want to give you guys some basic tips to help you improve your play in matches. The first thing you need to learn how to do is to lead your shots. With the exception of specific weapons like funnels, most ranged weapons in this game do not have the ability to lock onto a target. This means that you need to get used to your suit and the travel distance of its ranged attacks, particularly weapons like beam rifles or rockets and missiles. Watch your opponent's movement and try to lead your shot ahead of them so that it catches them as they move in that direction. And on the other hand, when your opponent is trying to land shots on you, it's best to switch up your movement to try and throw them off. On the ground, you'll mainly be moving side to side, but in space you can also ascend and descend. Also, be sure to learn to chain your ranged attacks together to get around cooldowns. Ranged weapons will often have a short cooldown before you can fire again, so by switching between your weapons after firing, you can keep up your pressure and damage. This is where those weapon shortcuts we talked about in the previous section come in, so you can quickly switch to the weapon you want without having to cycle through one by one. There are a couple of melee tips I want to give you as well, but before that I need to explain 2 other mechanics. The first is the emergency evasion skill that many suits have, which allows you to perform a dodge roll by double tapping your boost button. During this roll, you are completely immune to enemy attacks, which makes it very useful for avoiding enemy downswings as they deal much more damage and knock you down. The other thing to be wary of is the melee counter, which is triggered by performing a tackle into an oncoming melee attack. A skilled player will often use one of these 2 options to either avoid your melee attacks or counter them and deal damage to you. To counter this, it's best to try and stagger your opponent with a ranged attack first before going in for the melee, which will make it more difficult to attempt either of these moves. You can even try to bait a dodge roll by landing one melee attack and hoping they evade because they think you're going to follow up with a downswing. If they take the bait, they'll have no boost to roll or perform a tackle with the exception of a few suits, so your melee approach will be much safer. If you do knock your opponent down, you can still attack them for a couple of seconds, so make sure to take advantage of this opportunity. Cancel out of your downswing with a dash and then attack one more time. To limit your opponent's mobility, you can aim for your opponent's legs in a ground battle, and in space you can aim for the back to hit their thrusters. And speaking of damage, in game modes where it's possible to exit your suit, you have access to a repair tool that you can use to repair damage. In my opinion, however, this is almost never worth doing because it doesn't heal that much HP, and the time you spend repairing would be better spent just fighting to the end of your life and then spawning back in. The only time I really do this is if my legs have broken down and repairing them up to a certain level would allow me to move around normally again instead of duck walking everywhere. Like I mentioned earlier, while out of your suit you can plant a bomb at the enemy's base to destroy it. However, do not do this right at the start of a match. You earn more points for destroying the base with less than 2 minutes left on the clock, and the bomb itself takes a minute to detonate, so ideally you want to be planting either shortly before the 2-minute mark or between the 1 and 2 minute mark. Plus, if you're off trying to plant early in the match, the rest of your team is going to be outnumbered, they're going to hate you, just don't do it. You want to stick with your team as much as possible. Because of the somewhat slower style of combat in GBO, it can be very difficult to win an engagement against more than one enemy. Ideally, your team is moving together so you can cover them against opponents that have an advantage against them and vice versa. However, be careful that you aren't all ganging up on one person because you're just going to get in each other's way. While there is no friendly fire in GBO in terms of damage, you and your teammates can still stagger each other and knock each other down. I would stick to 2v1s, maybe 3v1s at the most so that you're not interrupting each other and at the same time leaving your remaining teammates to be attacked by the rest of the other team. Another thing that's somewhat related to this is you want to pay attention to how your team is spawning. If you're only spawning one at a time, you're just setting yourselves up to be farmed by the other team. Try to use the in-game comms to get your teammates to all spawn together on the same point, and that way you don't get ganged up on. Lastly, if you're playing in an ace match, please try your best to support your ace and make sure that they're getting the final blows on your opponents. This often makes the difference between winning and losing an ace match, so put your ego aside and be willing to give up the kills so that your team can win. And that brings us to the end of this new player guide for GBO2. This did end up having a little more information than I expected when I first started writing the video, but I wanted to make sure you guys had everything you need to get started. Let me know in the comments if you're planning on downloading GBO when it launches on Steam and what suit you're hoping to play with. Also, feel free to join my Discord, which is linked in the description below. My community has tons of people that play the game, so feel free to ask questions or find people to team up with. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a positive rating and subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you guys in the next one.